For 50 years, the humans and the Varnax fought side by side. Together, they won battles. They built peace. They signed treaties that echoed through the stars. But peace was a mask. Commander Jalin stood at the edge of the glass window inside, the massive space station orbiting Neutral Zone 7. Below, 2 fleets floated peacefully, one human, one Varnax. The moment felt calm. Too calm. Beside him stood Admiral Tessa, arms crossed. Her eyes never left the screen. They said today would change the galaxy. Yalin said softly. Tessa didn't smile. It will. Just not how they think. Inside the treaty hall, human and Varnax leaders sat at a long table. Their voices were calm. Words like trust and brotherhood were spoken. And then, everything changed. The lights flickered. A sudden boom echoed through the station. Jalin's wrist link buzzed. Commander, human ship Valor's Edge just exploded. Unknown cause. Then another dot, and another. Sir, the Varnax ships. They're firing on us. Jalin's eyes widened. What? Admiral Tessa grabbed her communicator. Red alert. This is a betrayal. On the screens, human ships were being ripped apart. Explosions bloomed like fireflowers in the dark. The Varnax weren't hesitating. They knew where to hit. Shield generators. Engines. Escape routes. This wasn't random. This was planned. Jale and clenched his fists. They were never our allies. Not truly. Tessa's face was pale. Get to the bridge. We have to escape. The UHS Dagger, Jalin's flagship, pulled away from the station as chaos burned behind it. Dozens of human ships tried to flee, but only a few made it. Varnax fighters swarmed the area like wasps. Cold, precise, unforgiving. Sir, incoming message from Earth High Command, said the communications officer. Jalen opened it. A general's face appeared, covered in smoke, and static. Commander, we've lost contact with Mars and Titan. They hit us everywhere. At once, we think they planned this for years. The message cut out. Hours later, Yalin sat alone in the war room. The few surviving captains stood around the table. No one spoke. The silence was heavy. We trusted them, one captain said. We gave them everything. They wanted our ships, our tech, our worlds, Tessa added bitterly. They took our kindness as weakness, Yalin said. Now they'll see what humans do when pushed. He reached into his uniform and pulled out a small black chip. It had one word etched on it. Phoenix. The captain stared. One whispered, Sir, that's a myth. Jalin's voice was ice. It's not. He inserted the chip into the table. A glowing red circle appeared. The message was simple. Project Phoenix active. Across hidden bases on Earth, Mars, Europa, and even old forgotten war bunkers in deep space, silent alarms triggered. Forbidden weapons powered up. Invisible fleets opened their eyes. Project Phoenix had been buried long ago. Built in secret. Meant to be used only if the worst happened. This was that time. Jale stood tall. This betrayal will not be forgotten. We will not beg for peace. We will not run. He looked each captain in the eyes. We will answer betrayal with fire. Far away, in a Varnax command ship, Warlord Sereth watched a recording of the human fleet burning. A smile crossed his face. Humans are weak. They feel too much. They break easily. Behind him, a young officer whispered, But what if they don't? Sereth laughed. Then we erase them completely. But deep inside Varnax space, strange reports were already spreading. Outposts going silent. Fleets. Disappearing without a trace. Back on the UHS Dagger, Yalin stood alone, looking. At a picture of Earth, cities were dark. Fires still burned. He closed his eyes. We trusted you. He whispered. Then he looked out into the stars, voice harder now. But we are human, and we remember. Asterisk, the stars had turned red with betrayal, but now humanity would answer, deep below. The surface of Mars, in an old base called Red Vault 9, something ancient woke up. A massive steel door hissed open. Inside, rows of dark ships stood in silence black as night, shaped like arrows, built for one purpose, revenge. A voice echoed in the dark. Project Phoenix, ... online. Commander Yalin stood on the bridge of the UHS Dagger, staring at the screen. Around him, his crew worked quietly. Each face was focused, tired. Angry. He turned to Admiral Tessa. How many Phoenix units are still intact? Tessa checked her display. 12 black fleets, 30 shadow bombers, 4 ghost-class destroyers. Yalin nodded. Enough. He pressed a button on the console. A message was sent across the stars. It was short. Only 2 words. Begin reclamation. On the edge of the Orion Belt, a small Varnax outpost blinked calmly in space. Its crew was bored. No alarms. No signs of danger. Then, silence. The power shut off. Lights died. Their shield flickered. Before anyone could react, something massive appeared above them. A human stealth destroyer. Silent. Black. Invisible to radar. 1 second later, the outpost was gone. Not destroyed. Erased. Back in Varnax High Command, Warlord Sereth paced nervously. Another outpost lost? He barked. His officers nodded. Yes, my lord. No signal. No survivors. No damage reports. Sereth's teeth clenched. How can there be no wreckage? No warning? A younger officer swallowed hard. Sir, some say the humans have begun the final protocol. Sareth turned slowly. Project Phoenix? He laughed bitterly. A human ghost story. But deep down, even he felt it call on fear. Meanwhile, Yalin and Tessa stood in front of the Phoenix war table, watching the map change. Each red dot was a Varnax fleet. One by one, they turned black. Gone. Alen. Spoke calmly. Don't hit the planets. Only military targets. Why? Tessa asked. They didn't spare our civilians. Yalin looked down at Earth's image-burned cities, crying children. I know, he said. But we're not. Them were something worse. On the Varnax colony of Vikra 7, sirens screamed. Varnax soldiers scrambled to man their weapons, but it was too late. 3 shadow bombers appeared in the sky. They didn't drop bombs. They dropped something else, signal breakers that fried every system. No one could move. No one could call for help. Then the sky lit up. And the Varnax base vanished. In a hidden chamber under Jupiter's ice moon. The last piece of Project Phoenix awoke. A massive AI known as Oberon blinked online. It spoke only once. Humanity betrayed. Counter-strike active. No mercy until silence. Then it began calculating and killing. Back on the UHS Dagger, Yalin watched the death toll rise. Tessa asked softly, how far are we going to go? Jalin's face was like stone, as far as they did. And then farther. The Varnax, once so confident, now trembled. Entire fleets gone. Bases turned to ash. Signals scrambled. Messages unanswered. The humans were no longer trying to survive. They were hunting. Sareth stood before the Varnax Council. He shouted, call for peace, now. One elder hissed, after what we did? You think they'll listen? Then we lie, Sareth shouted. We say it wasn't us. We blame someone else. But even he didn't believe it. That night, Sareth received a message. No sound. Just an image. A burning Varnax banner. And the human words, we remember. The galaxy held its breath. The Varnax had betrayed their strongest ally. Now, the humans were silent. And that silence was terrifying. In deep space, near the edge of the Varnax Empire, a massive fleet rested. It was the 7th Varnax Armada, full of warships, carriers, and patrol drones. Admiral Nrek sat inside the command ship. He had no fear. "They won't strike us here," he told his officers. "This region is too far, too quiet. They'll go for the core planets." He was wrong. At exactly 3 o'clock standard galactic time, the stars behind the Armada disappeared. No warning. No sound. Just ... gone ... and then they reappeared, replaced by hundreds of human warships. But these weren't normal human ships. These were Phoenix-class stealth destroyers. Ships built in secret. Ships that didn't exist on any map. They didn't use missiles. They used dark energy torpedoes, silent, invisible, and deadly. The Varnax fleet had 30,000 soldiers. In just 12 minutes, they were reduced to 0. No escape pods. No distress signals. Nothing. It was like the Armada had never existed. From the bridge of the UHS Dagger, Commander Yalin watched the data come in. Tessa stood beside him, shocked. One of their main fleets. "Gone," she whispered. Jalen didn't blink. That was just the beginning. Back on Varnax Prime, Warlord Sereth stared at the report. "Impossible," he muttered. "They destroyed 7th Armada in 12 minutes? That fleet took us 80 years to build." His generals were silent. "They have tech we've never seen," one finally said. "Ghost weapons. I command. They move faster than light." Sereth slammed his fist on the table. "Then we crush them with numbers." But another general shook his head. "Numbers mean nothing if they can't see us coming." Meanwhile, across Varnax space, more fleets vanished. One by one. The humans didn't take prisoners. They left no wreckage. Sometimes they didn't even leave heat signatures. Just empty space. Where ships used to be. On one Varnax colony, a small child pointed at the night sky. "Mom," she said, "why did that star just blink out?" The mother didn't answer. She already knew. Inside the war room of the UHS Dagger, Yalin spoke to his captains. "They thought they killed us. They thought we were weak." He pulled up a holomap. Red dots blinked all over the Varnax Empire. "Now we strike them where it hurts communication hubs, weapon factories, warp gates." One captain asked, "And the civilians?" Yalin stared. "At the map, we destroy only their ability to fight," he said. "Let the people see what happens when you betray humanity." The next strike hit Varnax Relay Station 6. This was the core of their galaxy-wide comm system. The humans didn't bomb it. They hacked it. Now every screen in the Varnax Empire played one message. "This is not a war. This is justice. You broke the pact. You killed the innocent. Now we erase your weapons. We erase your fleets. And if you continue, we erase your name from history. Humanity ****. The message ran for 10 minutes. Then the station exploded. Back on Earth, people gathered around massive screens. For the first time since the betrayal, they smiled. One child asked, "Dad, are we winning?" The man looked at the sky and whispered, "We're not just winning. We're reminding them who we are." On the Varnax homeworld, panic spread. Shops closed. Civilians fled cities. Soldiers refused orders. One Varnax scholar wrote in her journal, "The humans are no longer what they were. They are fire wearing skin." And we lit the match. The first strike was done. Over 9 Varnax fleets were destroyed. No survivors. No warnings. Just silence. And fear. And in that silence, a name began to rise across the stars. Humanity. Not as victims, not as friends, but as something far more dangerous. ***. The stars were quiet, But the silence was not peace, it was fear. Everywhere the Varnax looked, they found nothing. No messages. No answers. Only empty space and whispers of ghost ships. On the Varnax homeworld, the High Council met in secret. Warlord Sereth stood in front of the others, trembling. "We must stop this," he said. "We underestimated them. They are not fighting for victory. They are fighting to make us disappear." The room was silent. Then a voice said, "Send a peace offer." Another added, "Blame it on a rogue fleet." "Say it was not our command." Sereth nodded quickly. "Yes, we lie. Humans are emotional. Maybe they'll listen." They sent a message that same night. On the bridge of the UHS Dagger, Yalin read the transmission aloud. "We regret the actions of certain elements within our forces. We did not intend war. We seek peace. Let us rebuild trust together." Admiral Tessa scoffed. "They lied once. Now they lie again." Yalin stared at the message. Then he sent his own reply. It wasn't a message of words. It was a data chip. Burned and blackened. It carried only a single symbol, a broken human flag, covered in ash. And 3 words below it: "We remember everything." In the Varnax capital, leaders watched the reply in silence. This is no answer," one said, voice shaking. Sereth's voice was hollow. "It's worse than silence. It's a promise." The next day, the Varnax core shipyards vanished. A whole planet-sized factory gone. Satellite footage showed nothing. No ships arriving. No missiles launched. Just gone. The workers were never found. Their signals never heard again. Not even a distress beacon. In the following weeks, 10 more fleets disappeared. Varnax soldiers told stories of black ships that moved through walls, of shadows in space that swallowed entire carriers, of human war machines with no pilots, just red lights that followed them in the dark. In a small Varnax scout team, a young officer begged his captain, "I don't want to go out there. I heard the humans have weapons that can hear fear." The captain laughed. "Weapons can't hear." But when the ship passed through dead space, it didn't return. Not a sound. Only static. Back on Earth, people celebrated quietly. They lit candles for the lost. They named newborn children after fallen cities. But more than anything, they watched the stars and waited. Because humanity wasn't done yet. Not until the message was clear: never betray us again. Inside Jupiter's black ice base, the AI Oberon processed every Varnax word. It listened to military chatter, to civilian screams, to whispers from broken stations. And it spoke, cold and calm. Enemy morale collapsing. Resistance fading. Continue pressure. No peace. No reply. Whisper fear into every system. Yalin stood silently before the screen. He gave one order: "Let the void speak for us." Suddenly, the Varnax began hearing strange signals across their systems. Not words, not threats, just a heartbeat. Slow, deep, human. Over and over. Boom. Boom. They tried to block it. They failed. They changed channels. The heartbeat followed. Some thought it was a weapon. Others thought it was a warning. But one Varnax officer whispered the truth. "That's not a threat. That's their war drum." In dark space, one last Varnax colony remained untouched. They believed they were safe. They had no weapons. Only farms and families. One night, a ship appeared in orbit. Human made. It didn't fire. Instead, it sent a single message in the Varnax tongue. "We know who pulled the trigger and who watched in silence. Stay quiet, stay forgotten, and you will live." Then it vanished. Back in the war room of the UHS Dagger, Tessa looked at the galactic map. Red dots flickered. Most had turned to black. A few blinked weakly. Only one major fleet remains. She said. Jalen nodded. Then it's time. He turned toward the display. Call every ship, every commander, every AI. We end this now. Tessa asked, what? Should we call the final assault? Jalen's voice was soft, but firm. The final storm? The last Varnak's battle fleets regrouped near their homeworld, Var Tarun. It was their final defense line 10 fleets, each armed with thousands of warships. Admiral Rack stood on the bridge of the V's dominance, his voice shaking. Reinforce. The shields. Load every cannon. If the humans come ... we hold. But he didn't believe his own words. They had seen the signs. Dead colonies. Silent stations. Whole sectors blinking off the star charts like candles in the wind. Humanity wasn't fighting a war. They were ending an empire. On the UHS Dagger, Commander Yalen stood in front of his armada. Behind him, over 200 stealth-class warships waited in the dark. On his screen, each fleet captain appeared. Their faces were calm. Some were old, some were young. All of them had lost something. Jalen spoke. This is not just a battle. This is memory. For every city they burned, for every child lost, for every friend they betrayed. We carry the weight of Earth behind us, and we carry the fire of justice ahead of us. The captains said nothing. They didn't have to. Human fleets moved like shadows, undetectable, silent, fast. The Varnaks expected a head-on fight, but the humans came from 6 directions at once. The first, Varnak's fleet fell in less than 5 minutes. Second didn't even get to fire back. By the time the third fleet activated their defenses, half their ships were already burning. Admiral Rack screamed, "Where are they?" But his scanners showed nothing. Just explosions. Just flames. Just ... silence. Admiral Tessa led the second wave. She piloted the Eclipse, a black cruiser with a red flame painted on its hull. We gave peace. They gave us death, she said coldly. Now we give them what they gave us. In orbit above Var Tarun, the final fleet waited. It was massive, heavily armed, and well prepared. But Yalen didn't rush. He let the fear grow. He let them watch their own fleets disappear. One by one, he wanted them to know. They were alone now. Inside. The Varnak's War Council. Panic took over. "They're erasing us," one commander shouted. "We must surrender," cried another. But Warlord Sereth was silent. He looked out the window at the stars and saw human ships approaching, calm as ghosts. He whispered, "So, this is the price of betrayal." The humans sent one last message to Var Tarun. "This is not revenge. This is balance. You broke the pact. You killed the innocent. Now we erase your power, your weapons, your war. What remains is up to you." There was no answer. Only fear. The final storm began. Thousands of precision strikes hit shield generators. Weapon cores can command towers. But still, the humans avoided the cities. They were showing control, not madness. It wasn't about blood. It was about justice. After 7 hours of nonstop assault, the skies above Var Tarun were quiet. The Varnak's fleet was no more. Only ash and silence remained. In the aftermath, the UHS Dagger hovered calmly in orbit. Commander Yalen looked at the burning remains of Varnak's war stations. Admiral Tessa joined him. "It's over," she said. "No," Yalen replied. "The fire is over. Now comes the silence." In a council chamber on Earth, humans watched the victory footage. No cheering. No celebration. Only a quiet nod. A reminder that humanity never wanted this. But when pushed, they do not forget. And they do not stop. Somewhere far from the war, a young Varnak's child looked up at the sky. Her father held her close and whispered, The humans came from peace, ... but left as fire. And across the galaxy, one message spread whispered from world to world. Do not betray Earth. Ever again. Asterisk, the stars over Vartarun no longer glowed with strength. They flickered like a dying flame. The once mighty Varnax Empire had no fleets left. No defense lines. No pride. Only the memory of betrayal and the silence left behind by human fury. Inside the main tower of Varnax High Command, Warlord Sereth stared at a broken screen. It showed a live feed from space. Nothing moved. Their grand space fleet burned. Their allies gone. Their power erased. One advisor whispered, "We must surrender. Send a plea, anything." But Sereth didn't speak. He knew it was too late. This wasn't war anymore. This was judgment. In orbit, the UHS Dagger stood like a black shadow above VAR-TARU. Inside. Commander Yalin gazed at the surface. He saw empty launch pads, scorched. Hangars, disabled cannons. He pressed a button and opened a channel to the human fleets. Final phase, begin. All across space, Project Phoenix fleets came into view. Ships that had been hiding now surrounded the planet. They didn't fire. They waited. Admiral Tessa approached Yalin. "They're afraid," she said. "Some are trying to send surrender." "Codes," Yalin answered coldly. "They had their chance. They sent fire. We returned silence." She hesitated. "So what now?" Yalin looked at the blue-green planet below. "We take their power, not their lives. We erase their empire, not their people." Moments later, thousands of data beams rained down onto the surface. They weren't weapons. They were signal killers. Every military computer, every launch system, every war AI, wiped. The Varnax Empire lost the ability to ever wage war again. They could build no more ships, launch no more fighters, track no more targets. Their entire war machine was deleted from the galaxy. In the deepest bunkers of Vartarun, generals shouted for power. Reboot the shields. Arm the missiles. Nothing worked. The systems replied with the same phrase. Error. Access denied by humanity. Yalin stood before the main screen. He gave one final order. Broadcast to the galaxy. He cleared his throat and spoke slowly. "This is Commander Yalin of Earth's unified defense. 50 years ago, we called the Varnax our friends. Then they betrayed us, killed our people, burned our cities, lied to our faces. This was not war. This was justice. Let all who watch remember, humanity does not fall. Humanity does not forgive betrayal. And humanity does not lose. The Varnax Empire ... is no more." Across the stars, planets watched. Leaders from other species sat in silence. They had once called humans young, soft, too emotional. Now they called them something else, unstoppable. Back on Earth, the skies were clear. Families lit candles for those who were lost. Children learned the names of forgotten heroes. And the world stood tall, not in celebration, but in memory. On Vartarun, the people emerged from shelters. That they saw no invaders, no burning cities, no final strike, only silence. And then, a single human message on every screen. Live, rebuild, but never forget what you became. You erased your honor. We erased your empire. One Varnax child asked her mother, "Will the humans come again?" The mother knelt and whispered, "Only if we give them a reason." In deep space, the UHS Dagger turned away from the Varnax system. Yalin stared into the stars. He knew others were watching now, and he knew the message had been sent, not through words, not through war, but through the erasure of an empire. The stars were quiet again, but this time, the silence belonged to Earth, Asterisk.